Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're putting a really unusual stack of sources on the table. Seriously different.
Yeah, definitely not your standard economic forecast or anything like that.
No, we're diving deep into a philosophy that, honestly, it challenges the most fundamental assumption, maybe, of modern life, which is the relationship between you and, well, wealth itself.
Right. These sources, they introduce this really powerful concept. They call it the reality revolution. And it's centered on one radical, almost unbelievable claim: you are money.
And that's it. That's the core mission statement for this deep dive, really. We want to unpack this idea, this concept that money isn't some external thing you go get, but that it's actually an expression of your own consciousness.
Yeah, and the central thesis, the thing they keep hammering home, is that the moment you get that, the moment you realize, I am money, money is me, everything changes. And not slowly, like over time, but instantaneously. That's the word they use.
Instantaneously. Because you've just removed what they call the false barrier.
Exactly, the barrier between yourself and, well, what they describe as infinite supply.
Okay, so how do they break that down? It sounds huge.
Well, what's fascinating is how they sort of organize this whole framework. It rests on, like, three pillars.
Yeah.
First, you have to understand money as pure energy, neutral energy.
Okay.
Second, the idea that we're separate from this energy. They call that the biggest lie ever sold to humanity.
The biggest lie. Okay.
And third, that true wealth isn't something you chase outside yourself. It's something you command internally. It's just a natural expression of who you really are.
Okay, let's try and ground this a bit because, it sounds very abstract. The sources use some pretty staggering data to make their case, right?
They do. They start with modern finance. Consider this.
Yeah.
Every single second.
Yeah?
Approximately $17 trillion moves through the planet's financial systems.
Every second.
Per second.
Oh, wow. Okay, 17 trillion. That number alone.
Ah!
It kind of challenges the whole idea of scarcity, doesn't it?
That's exactly their point. That sheer continuous volume, that flow. That's the key insight. They argue that this massive movement, this energy, it just can't be contained or defined by paper or metal anymore.
Right. And the material describes this movement not as, like, physical stuff, but as pure electrical impulse, as frequency. And here's where they make that big leap, the one we really need to look at.
Yeah.
They explicitly connect this financial frequency to the same electromagnetic force that's firing through your nervous system right now.
Yeah, and that's the bridge, isn't it, between finance and, well, yourself.
So,
Well, look at currency today. What is it, actually? 97% of all money is digital.
right. It's just numbers on screens.
Exactly. It's not tangible. So the sources conclude money is essentially pure information, pure agreement, pure consciousness held in collective belief.
So we
Yeah.
collectively think money into existence just by agreeing these imaginary numbers have value.
Pretty much. That's the argument.
Okay, connecting that to the bigger picture, the sources frame money as humanity's first successful experiment in collective reality creation. That's quite a statement.
It is. They see it as a kind of spiritual technology.
Yeah.
We took essentially nothing, an idea, injected it with belief. And that belief now moves continents, builds cities, does everything.
Which is why they focus on the word currency, right? They link it to current flow.
The movement of life force itself, yeah. It's neutral potential. It just responds to the consciousness, the belief you bring to it.
Like water or electricity, you said.
Yeah.
No inherent good or bad.
Exactly. It just moves where it's directed, has no morality of its own.
Okay, that analogy makes sense. Money is this neutral flow.
Yeah.
But then why does this struggle feel so incredibly real for so many people? If it's just neutral energy, why the difficulty?
Well, this brings us right to that second core theme you mentioned, the separation program.
Right. The biggest lie.
According to this material, this is the biggest obstacle. The core deception is believing that, God and abundance are separate, or maybe that spiritual seeking and having material wealth, that those are somehow mutually exclusive paths.
You can't be spiritual and wealthy.
Right. And the sources point out the irony here. You get people who really understand quantum fields, universal connection, oneness, but they'll simultaneously judge money. They'll see it as dirty or dark or sinful. And it's that judgment, that belief in separation, that creates what they call the core fracture.
Wait a second, though. Is it really that simple? I mean, are the sources saying global inequality or systemic poverty is just a personal vibration issue? Or do they acknowledge the structural stuff.
They do acknowledge the external reality, yes, but they argue that the external structure is just reflecting the collective internal vibration. Their focus is always on the individual's point of power.
Okay.
They're saying that internal fracture, that belief that you are separate from supply, that's the primary engine driving the struggle for the individual.
And this shows up in how we talk.
Absolutely. That's why they focus so much on the language we use every day.
Like what? Do you mean example?
Okay, like when someone says, I need money, or, oh, I can't afford that.
Which people say all the time.
All the time. The sources claim you're doing way more than just stating a fact about your bank account. You are, in their words, fracturing your consciousness. And crucially, you're actually training your nervous system for scarcity.
Training your nervous system for scarcity. That's a big claim. How would that even work physiologically?
Well, they argue it's not just metaphysical talk. It's described as literal biological conditioning.
How?
When you say, I can't afford that, your body genuinely has a stress response. Cortisol, adrenaline, the works. Because money, in this view, is life force in one of its many costumes.
Right.
So when you repeatedly declare yourself separate from it, you're essentially rehearsing disconnection, maybe dozens of times a day. Your whole being kind of contracts.
Mm-hmm.
Your nervous system literally wires itself for lack. And the result is what they call a cascading failure. It doesn't just affect your finances. It impacts your physical health, your relationships, your creativity. Because the universe, or reality, or whatever you want to call it, only knows how to say yes to your dominant vibration. And if that vibration is separation, well...
Then separation is what you get more of.
Yeah.
So the body learns to almost repel the very thing it thinks it needs because it's identified that thing, money, as a source of stress or lack.
Exactly. Which might explain that common phenomenon, why people who get a sudden windfall, like lottery winners.
Yeah. They often end up broke again.
Right. The sources say broke people stay broke even if you dump a huge pile of cash on them.
Why? Because the underlying program hasn't changed.
Precisely. Think of it like trying to run some amazing new software on a computer with a corrupted operating system file deep inside. Doesn't matter how much RAM or storage the money you throw at it, it's going to crash. If you haven't healed that core fracture, that deep-seated belief in separation, you're just moving symbols around. The money vanishes because the internal resistance, the friction, is still there, generating immense heat, and that heat burns through everything you try to build.
So the lesson is, until you realize you are the money, the supply will always feel finite because you're constantly looking for yourself, for that infinite source outside of yourself.
You got it.
Which brings us really neatly to the people who apparently took this theory, this idea of being the supply, and actually lived it, engineered it into their reality.
Yeah, let's look at the case studies because these really illustrate the point.
They collapse the space between themselves and the money.
That's the idea. And what's great about these anecdotes is they often involve people in, pretty ordinary or even tough situations. Let's start with Jim Reed.
Jim Reed, okay, who was he?
He was a janitor, worked in Vermont, cleaned floors at a JCPenney for 17 years.
Okay. Minimum wage job, presumably.
Right. Never earned much more than that.
Never.
But his internal practice, what he did mentally, was apparently revolutionary.
What did you do?
During his breaks, he'd just sit quietly and repeat one specific phrase, deliberately designed to shift his identity. The phrase was, I am the flow that money follows.
I'm the flow that money follows, not I want money or I need money.
Exactly. He shifted his inner dialogue from being a chaser, someone needing an external reward, to being the constant, reliable flow itself.
Okay, so what happened?
Well, when he died back in 2019, Jim Reed left behind an estate worth $8 million.
$8 million. From a janitor's salary. How?
It was apparently accumulated entirely through compound interest on small but very consistent investments he made throughout his life. Little bits, often.
Wow.
But here's the really critical detail, according to these sources. He gave away thousands of dollars anonymously over the years to the local library, helping neighbors with medical bills, funding scholarships.
So he wasn't hoarding it.
Not at all. The sources insist the money kept regenerating because Jim knew he was the money. It wasn't something separate to hold on to tightly out of fear. It was just an extension of his own generous identity. And because it was part of him, it couldn't really leave him. It just circulated.
That's a profound example. Shifting from scarcity to identity.
Okay.
Okay. Who else? There was another one. Sarah Blakely.
Ah, yes, the founder of Spanx. Another powerful case. Before she had a single product, okay? Before any investors, any real business, she adopted this specific practice for 6 months straight.
What'd she do? write affirmations?
More than that, she literally wrote herself checks, and she would sort of ceremonially cash them at her consciousness bank.
Cash them at her consciousness bank. Okay, sounds a bit whimsical.
It sounds it, but the point was the seriousness of the internal practice. And the detail on the memo line of those checks is essential.
What did it say?
It said, for circulating value.
Oh, not for getting rich.
Exactly. She wasn't just visualizing having money. She was actively practicing the feeling of being money in motion, expressing her inner currency, as the sources put it.
So the idea is she became a billionaire not just through luck or a good idea, but because she successfully held the energetic identity of someone who circulates value before the external world confirmed it.
She was acting as the mint before the coins were even struck, yeah. It kind of proves the source's point. The internal frequency has to come first, then the external stuff follows.
Okay, one more. There was a story about a homeless man, Nishida, in Tokyo.
Right, Nishida. He lost absolutely everything in the 2011 tsunami. His home, his business, everything. Ended up living rough in a park.
That's a terrible situation. What was his practice?
Incredibly simple, but again, totally focused on identity. He would bow to the sunrise each morning and just repeat, I am wealth experiencing itself as human.
I am wealth experiencing itself as human, not I need wealth.
Never. And the results. Well, if they sound almost bizarre, initially people probably thought he was, delusional.
Understandable.
But Nishida started experiencing what the sources call recognition. Like reality started recognizing his internal state.
Wow.
He started finding things, envelopes of cash just left in trash bins. He found winning lottery tickets. And get this, sometimes the numbers were seemingly wrong, like a misprint, but they turned out to be the actual winning numbers for a different draw or something.
Seriously.
Yeah. And maybe the most famous one, he found a rare baseball card, apparently worth around $40,000, just sitting on the park bench where he slept one morning.
That's uncanny.
And within 3 years, he owned a successful ramen shop. He was back on his feet and then some.
And his conclusion summed it all up.
Perfectly. He said, I never found money. I recognize myself in different forms.
Wow. Okay, so what's the pattern here? Jim Reed, Sara Blakely, Nishida.
Do you see it? None of them chased money in the conventional sense.
Right.
They collapsed the separation. They fundamentally reorganized their internal being, their sense of identity. They went from being like the money beggar or the money chaser to becoming the money generator. They became the mint itself.
That's synthesis. That's what the sources call the ultimate reorganization, right?
Exactly. Once you internalize this truth, this identity, money stops being this external thing you have to plead for or sweat over.
It becomes, what do they call it? Your extended body.
Yeah. And that's such a perfect analogy for control and sovereignty, isn't it?
How so?
Well, you don't beg your hand to move, do you?
No, I just intended to move.
Right. You intend it and it obeys because it is you. It's part of you. The material argues money should be directed the exact same way. It moves by your command, by your intention, by your sovereign will.
So when the individual changes their internal frequency, their core identity to I am money,
Then the entire planetary system, that whole $17 trillion per second flow we talked about, it literally has to reorganize itself around that new frequency, around you.
creating what the source called a great migration of money.
Precisely. The idea is when you become that grounded node of abundant consciousness, the money that's been maybe trapped in dark vaults of fear or hoarded by people operating from scarcity, it just naturally starts streaming towards the creators, the light workers, as they put it.
Because you become the magnetic organizing principle for it.
Yes. The money supply responds to you. It seeks a home where it can express its highest purpose, which they define as love, creation, expansion.
It's really all about remembrance then, isn't it? The whole struggle, according to this, just comes from looking for yourself, that infinite supply outside yourself.
That's the essence of it. The entire structure of these sources, all the anecdotes, all the theory, it boils down to one single powerful takeaway that supposedly changes everything. You don't have money.
You are money.
You are money.
Okay. Which leaves us and leaves you listening
Right.
with this final provocative thought to maybe mull over. If money really is just consciousness in motion and every transaction, every price tag, every bill, it's just an exchange of belief, then what specific actions are you taking in your life right now? What phrases are you using? What prices are you maybe flinching at that are actually training your nervous system, conditioning it biologically to just rehearse scarcity over and over?
And the flip side, how might simply changing that internal dialogue, truly shifting that identity, how might that instantly rewrite your perceived financial reality.
Something to think about.
Now go out there and be the flow.
We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.